Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mind Your Mental. Just a reminder that this podcast is not meant to be a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. I know they are hard to find, and I get that. I have a bunch of resources on my website if you need them, but I am not your clinician. I am a psychologist, but I am not your psychologist. So if you need any specific help, please look for the help of a licensed mental health professional. Learn all you can learn from the podcast. Enjoy the episode. What's up, Mavericks? Today we have another amazing guest. We have Rwenshaun Miller, who is a therapist, speaker, mental health change agent, author, award-winning social entrepreneur, and he is a thirst trap specialist. You know I was going to throw that in. There was no way you could throw that in.
Chill.
As a licensed professional counselor, Rwenshaun's services spans all ages with the goal of helping each person understand and take accountability for their mental wellness. Through his journey after being diagnosed with bipolar disorder, he founded You Stress Incorporated. I love this name, by the way, because a lot of people don't realize that You Stress means good stress. A lot of times people are focusing on distress. So I love the fact that you named your organization You Stress. It's EU Stress. It's a nonprofit organization that focuses on raising mental health awareness through conversation and activities to break the stigma associated with mental illness in Black and Brown communities. He's worked in the mental health field for over a decade, understanding the challenges faced by individuals with limited resources. And as a PhD student of international psychology, look at that, he looks to provide ways to address these needs. So everybody, welcome Rwenshaun. What's up?
What up with you, Doc?
Just to explain the thirst trap.
I'm good.
Guys, I'm good. I just want to explain this to you because when you guys go to his social media, which you will, and you scroll, and you should scroll, okay? He's just looking to help, guys. He's just trying to provide clinical services as well as thirst traps. You can learn a lot. I'm I'm just saying.
Comes away with it.
Be prepared, guys. The same way I tell y'all, if y'all follow me, I cuss. I want y'all to be prepared. I just want y'all to prepare yourselves. Hit that.
Oh man, whatever, yo.
Okay. So yeah, welcome. Welcome.
I see how this conversation about to go, man. Oh my gosh. I'm good, man. Coming off a trip to Chicago, but it was good. I said coming off of a trip to Chicago, but I'm good. How are you?
Hey, everyone. Just a reminder that Mind Your Mental is not just a podcast. It is also a amazing community, if I do say so myself. It's phenomenal. I mean, you get more access to me. What more could you want in this life? So if you want to join the community, if you're not already on the community, go to my social media. My social media is the same, Raquel Martin, PhD, and DM me the word community so you can get details on joining this amazing flipping community. You get more access to me, y'all. Like, I'm a delight. All right. Hope to see you there. I'm good. I'm so glad to have you because I wanted to make sure this podcast wasn't solely a space to talk about Black mental health from the women's perspective or even the binary perspective, but I wanted to include men as well. So when I knew I wanted to have like Black men in the space, I was like, let me hit you up, see if you're free. Because I think there are a lot of Black women in the space discussing mental health, which I think is amazing. There are some Black men, but I think there can always be more. I have my own hypothesis about why that is. But I feel like we live in a space where we live in a world that doesn't really make space for Black men to have emotions, let alone talk about them, let alone go into a profession dedicated to emotions. So tell me more about why you decided to not only be a licensed professional counselor, but also dedicate an entire nonprofit organization to education and breaking down stigma.
Really just got into it just based off of my own personal journey, man. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder back in 2006. And when I was diagnosed, it was something that went over my head because the doctor and the nurse and everybody that was telling me all of these things, I really wasn't listening to them because they didn't look like me. But then also I was terrified of what it actually meant for me as a person because like coming out of a high school, I was a man growing up. I was a 3-sport athlete. Was good in school and everybody knew me because I'm from a small town. But then also going into college, I had a lot of these expectations that were placed on me to do well, but then also come back to my own hood and do a lot of things for the people that I left behind at one point. So when I got the particular diagnosis, I understood that I couldn't go back to school at that particular time, but then also I needed to get the actual mental health help. And my very first therapist was a little Asian lady, man. And I would not talk to her at all because I didn't trust her. It felt very sterile. She was asking me, well, how are you doing? I just give short answers. But then once I transitioned from her and found another therapist, which my uncle connected me with, it was a Black psychologist, Dr. Kendall Jasper. And he changed the trajectory for me with actually getting the help that I need because he looked like me, he talked like me, but then also he dressed like me. And when I first went into his office, he had on a t-shirt and some basketball shorts. and I had to check him, be like, yo, are you really a doctor? Because this is not what we're used to seeing. And so with that, we developed this great relationship, and he allowed me to really divulge everything that was going on in my head. But then also he made it comfortable for me to start the treatment that I needed to get into. He also recommended a psychiatrist for me to get on meds. And not only did he recommend the psychiatrist, which was an older white guy, he went with me to my psych appointment because he knew that I wasn't comfortable talking to an older white man about what was going on. So he changed the trajectory for me. But then also I realized that once I went through a lot of different struggles, because even after that, I got better. And of course, I stopped going to him, which I shouldn't have stopped. But then I battled with suicidal ideations. I attempted suicide 3 times. First 2 times I tried to OD on pills, and the last time I put a gun in my head and pulled the trigger and it jammed on me. So, being in that was my lowest point of my life. When I went back to him and got the help that I needed, I understood that it took a different type of investment for myself. And once I started to get better this second time, I realized that our community suffers a lot when it comes down to addressing these issues, but then talking about them, but then also the type of care that's available to us is very limited. So I was like, yo, I needed to be who I needed when I was younger. That's the motto I live by. So I was like, let me become a therapist. Also, let me create an organization where we're going to talk about these things and involve our culture into the actual practice. Similar to you, Doc. I mean, you talk to us on a level where we can receive it. It is not something that's read from a book, and it's something that, from young kids to adults that are twice our age can receive it because our culture transcends, the test of times, and we experience a lot of the same things. So if we're able to talk about it in our language, people are able to receive it.
I hate when people they just make stuff so intricate. It irritates the crap out of me because most of the time I feel like that shows that they don't know what they're talking about. Like, I feel like it's easy to regurgitate like a research article or use your thesaurus. But when I was in training, they always told me that you should be able to break down a concept to someone as young as 4, because I was working with children in the beginning anyway. So it's like, if you can't explain cognitive dissonance, which is basically like a disconnect between your values and what you did, if you can't explain that to a 4-year-old, you don't know what you're talking about, right? And I feel like a lot of people, when we were training, they would explain these intricate concepts, and I'm like, right. Well, it sounds like, just run up, get done up. It sounds like they just found out because they just messed around with the wrong person. Oh, the consequences that led to their actions. No. It sounds like you found out. Did you not? Maybe let's work together to make sure next time when you find out, you don't get your eye blacked. But I always get so irritated when people do that, because I'm like, who are you trying to reach? And when it comes to both of us being licensed mental health professional, I feel like we can also acknowledge that this field is actually it's pretty elitist, in my opinion. Like, the amount of money it costs to become a professional, to keep your training and education. I don't think it was never meant to support people that look like us. And we're the main people, like people who look like us are the ones who need the care. It's super elitist. Like, I go to these, I remember going and training with someone and asking her what she would do next. And she's like, oh, my fiance is like a hand surgeon. So I kind of just did this school thing, but I don't think I'll ever practice. I was like, what? What you mean?
Right. What's the point?
You did this for fun? What was the point? What do you mean?
Right.
And they paid out of pocket. And they were in a PsyD program. They paid out of pocket, and it was like $200,000. I was just like, oh my God. I've never hated anyone more. I've never hated anyone more in my life.
But then when you were in school with them, they're taking these these classes and these concepts, and they were like, oh, that makes sense. And we're sitting there like, makes sense to who? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to the hood and trying to do these, oh well, tell me about your day, and what is this? How does this relate to this? And I'm sitting in the hood, and you got roaches crawling over the floor and all the walls, and you trying to talk to mom about Johnny who's 8, but then you got the baby that's crying, and so you got to sit there and try to hold the baby and keep entertained. You got another kid that's shooting you with a dart gun and all of this other stuff. Like, make it make
It's
sense.
not helpful. It make sense, and I feel like that's why a lot of clinicians that I work with, especially like a lot of ones who specialize in Black mental health, kind of like you do, they focus on tangible solutions that individuals can relate to, right? Like instead of keeping in the abstracts, I find that most people need help in this this moment. And my mom's a social worker, so I've always been in the realm of like wraparound services, the social cultural things that contribute to the issues. Like let's talk about depression, but let's talk about what probably contributes to your depression, the fact that you don't have appropriate transportation. Let's see if I can get you some tokens, or what probably contributes to your depression, like you're having difficulty buying groceries, so let me see if I can get you some vouchers, or like childcare, right? Like I think a lot of times in the training, it's missed that like you're talking about depression, but you're not thinking about the sociocultural things that contribute to their depression. I think that's why there's a need for so many clinicians like us to be like, yeah, they're depressed, but let's not only talk about thoughts and feelings and behaviors. Let's talk about like the community that's contributing to it. What can we do to alleviate that? Like it's not just about talking. It's about, let me see if I can sign you up for this program, because I know we got some free tokens in the back. I know tokens is old school. I know no one uses tokens anymore, guys. I know they're cards. My little brother played me the other day. It was like, tokens? Okay, boomer. I was like, sir, I will never give you cash again. I will never give you cash again. Mommy and dad are not going to give it. I haven't ridden the bus since tokens. Like legit, I'm old. But like also looking at social programs. But you mentioned some really good points. You said the fact that you stopped going to therapy and you never should have stopped. Why did you stop going to therapy?
Oh man, because I treated it like it was a physical illness at that time. I didn't know enough about understanding that, when you're dealing with a mental health challenge, especially with something as severe as bipolar disorder, that's something that you're going to deal with for the rest of your life. Once the symptoms were able to subside, I felt like I was cured and I wanted to jump back into, whatever I was doing. And so I stopped taking my meds and stopped going to therapy. I tried to treat it like, I've broken my hands before. I've broken arms and legs and all of those things. So, they wrap you up in a cast, give you like 6 to 8 weeks, you go to PT and then you jump right back in it. So I try to treat it the same way and it's not the same.
I think that's pretty typical. I've had a lot of patients who stopped taking medication because they're like their symptoms subsided, and I had to be like, yeah, that was the medication. Like, but I think it's
right.
typical, and I like the way you put it. Like, I treated it like a medical diagnosis. Like, okay, my arm's not broken anymore. I'm not about to keep wearing this freaking cast. What I look like? Like, it makes sense. I think when it comes to bipolar disorder, there's the general aspect of it being defined as shifts in your mood and energy levels and activity levels, which make it really hard to have day-to-day tasks. Your mental health and your well-being and diagnoses are a fingerprint. So can you share more about what bipolar disorder looks like in you overall? Like, how does it manifest in you? Because it's not going to be the same across the span.
Ooh, so initially my diagnosis was bipolar 1 disorder with psychotic features. So I would have those different mood swings, and I would go from the manic phase where I would experience feeling like Superman. And I would describe my Superman phase as some people spend a lot of money. For me, it's not that. It's me I have very high energy. I don't need to sleep. But then also at the time of diagnosis and even right after, I was in college. So it was me drinking a lot. It was also me engaging in hypersexual activity, like, and felt like I could talk to anybody and engage in sex with anybody. Like, I'm the man. I can pull you. I can pull you and pull you. Like, it was those type of things. But then also it was the quick thoughts where I was trying to do like 10 different projects at the same time. Oh, I can do this. I can do this. Or let me start this. And I never finished anything. But then on the opposite end of that is the depression phase where I didn't even want to talk to people. And even in those phases, I would stay in the bed. Sometimes I would sleep a lot, but even when I did sleep, a lot of times I was self-medicating to sleep. Or I had to drink alcohol and consume alcohol till I passed out. And that allowed me to get some type of rest, that because it allowed my thoughts to slow down and shut up. But also it really wasn't real rest. So I would still be lethargic whenever I was moving around or I didn't want to eat and all of those things. So I would lose weight. And I really had a disinterest for every single thing. I would sit in my room and wouldn't even watch TV or talk to anybody. And I could do that for days on end and just sitting there in my own thoughts. So, I mean, it's a plethora of different things that, how it shows up in different people, but that's what it looked like for me. And then also sometimes, even if I never get to a full blown manic phase, I also got to think about those hypermanic phases where, I can go 2 or 3 hours on sleep and go like that for a week and be like, yo, you need to check yourself, Sean, because if you keep going down this road, it's going to be a spiral.
You mentioned challenges with finding mental health support in the first place. You mentioned feeling like it was like a medical diagnosis and stopping care. In your experience, what are some unique challenges that you think Black men face when it comes to seeking mental health support? And how do you address these in your practice? Because if it's one thing, if I'm looking at your timeline, I think you work with people across the lifespan and across genders, but even looking at the comments, Black men see themselves and like the way you address issues, the way you discuss issues, just having like flat out conversations. So I see them as like one of your primary populations of interest. What challenges do you think are unique to Black men when it comes to seeking mental health support?
Oh man, I would say one of the first things is getting out of their own way when it comes down to ego, because we feel like we are reared to being this strong individual and always really showing up as providers and protectors. We never really think about ourselves as somebody that need to be protected or being able to be catered to in certain manners, especially when it comes down to our feelings and emotions. So I think that's one of the major things, because that ego is sometimes rooted in fear, because we are scared to be judged. And then we're also scared to, if we open up a certain wound that we done buried so deep down, what it's going to make us, have a breakthrough on or break down on, because you're scared to have that breakdown, to be honest with you. And then if you think about systemically, we don't have enough Black male therapists to be able to talk about these things with individuals. And I'm gonna just be real with you even further. We don't have enough cool Black male therapists. Because like you said, when it comes down to...
It's a bunch of lames. What you say, Rashad? It's a bunch of lames.
A bunch of lames, bro. Like, I mean, we're going to be real. Shoot. You got people that they not even comfortable with themselves. You know what I'm saying? So like, and then so they gonna try to wear the hat like I do it. But nah, that ain't you, bro. Like, you come from like... that ain't you. So like, be yourself, you know what I'm saying? But then also too, like you said before, this profession can be very elitist in a certain manner. So some people, they feel like they get certain credentials, and when they get credentials, they feel that they're above other people. And when they feel like they're above other people, you treating our population the same way the other folks treating us. And that ain't right. So like, nah, so that's what I mean when it comes down to being cool. Like if you of the culture, you go be a part of the culture and be in it. And then that's how you go deliver the services. But if you feel like you're above the culture and you dibble dabble in it when you want to dibble dabble in it, you ain't gonna be able to reach people that we got to reach.
How do you address these things with having people who don't relate to us appropriately only try to tap into the Black community when they're trying to make a buck, or basically adultifying and dehumanizing and oppressing us in the same way other people are? How do you address all of these issues in your practice to actually be for the community that you belong to and the one that you want to serve?
Whew, that's a loaded question, yo. Oh man, I would say, one of the things would be, again, doing the work on myself. So a lot of my work and my practice is based off of the journey that I had to go through to be able to understand who I am as a person, who I am as a Black man, who I am as a Black man in America, who I am as a Black father, who I am as a son, as a cousin, and all of these things. So that allows me to be more, the more I'm introspective, it allows me to be more productive and supportive to the other person that I'm actually trying to serve. So even in my practice, clinicians that may come, I'm asking them to do the same thing, because you'll be amazed at how many clinicians that work in the field that don't even do the work on themselves. And that allows them to feel like they're above everyone else. So now I bring myself down by understanding my faults and, my idiosyncrasies and all of those things, and also my own trauma that made me view the world the way I view the world. And I start to really dig deep on that stuff. That allows me to peel back certain layers to be able to receive the other individual that's in front of me. So I'm not judging them based off of whatever they're going through. I'm able to actually listen to them. And then, and I lead with that. I let people know that, I'm far from perfect, man. And I've done some stuff in my past that I had to, atone for, but then also understanding that I got a lot of other growth to actually deal with. So being able to dig deep into myself allowed me to be a better clinician. But then once I'm able to, say that to them, they'll be like, damn, like, all right. So if you can address your own stuff or admit your own stuff, all right, I'm comfortable enough to share it with you, share what my stuff is. Or they'll be like, yo, you just put words to what I'm experiencing that I didn't even have words for. And they feel comfortable just digging in there.
I think it's amazing that you're able to provide that space for everyone, but especially Black men, because I think we're getting better, but we're very much in a world where even just the acknowledgement of thoughts can be an issue. I remember I had my class, and one of the young women students had said something sideways to the guys in the front. So he said something back to her, and she said, "Oh, okay, sassy." And I said, "Oh, that's not sassy. That's you found out." I said, "Why is it sassy for him advocating for himself?" And she was like, "He didn't have to say it like that." I said, "Oh, I think you're just upset that he finished it." I was like, "That's not sassy." And I said, so now let's have a conversation about emotional expression and just advocating for yourself. And they were just like, "Oh my God." I was like, because we're going to take a minute from the syllabus now, because I just want to point out what just happened in this moment. You talked to him sideways. He returned the favor and did a better job. And now he's sassy. I said, "How was that? You started it. I was like, you can't say that like, oh, I want emotional expression, but then be like, no, I ain't mean it like that. I meant like, just like all the positive emotions. I don't want you to give me stuff I don't want to hear. Like that is a problem." So I love the fact that you provide that space, because it's not often provided. Like I feel like a lot of people are only pro-Black when someone's blackness mirrors their own. I think people will state they're okay with emotional expression, but it really is only if it's an emotion that they're prepared to receive or that they want to hear. And I think people are surprised when a lot of times when Black men advocate for themselves in a reasonable way. Like there are some morons out here, but there's the same for every gender and non-binary people. I think some people are just used to, at times, being able to kind of like walk all over people. Like my husband he's a very kind person, but I just be like, man, sometimes I be wishing I could be in the room and be like, they said what? Don't you be nice to that girl? Don't let her talk to you like that. I really wish I could just be like, I'm sorry, what? What did they say? And you said what? Oh, because you were nice. You a little too nice. Okay, stop being nice to this. The only woman you need to like be nice to is me and your mom.
It's so many layers to that though, Doc. Because like when you think about it, like I mean, a lot of times we don't want to become aggressive in certain instances, or like you said, the young man in your class, whenever they say something, we're judged for being sassy or this, that, and the third, or you get ostracized for certain things, or they'll call you this angry Black man, just like, women, whenever they vocalize themselves, they're called angry Black women. But then also we're being put against each other in so many different fashions. And like, you'd be like, yo, I might as well just keep my stuff to myself. And then if I keep it to myself and keep the peace, it's a lot better than me actually vocalizing. Then we got to go through this back and forth and this rigmarole. But then also, so I've had clients come to me, I lie to you not, that said that their wives tell them to fire me as their clinician because of the fact that now they feel empowered to be able to discuss their feelings and emotions about the things that they don't like that their wives do. You sing.
Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that.
So, I mean, so with that, so there's so many layers to relationships.
Yeah.
So when men can get to the point where they feel like when they can actually put words to how they're feeling, and also the frustrations that they're dealing with, whether it's with a partner or at work or any of those things, like a lot of times when I help them be able to communicate those feelings and emotions, and it's not in a hostile way or anything like that. Like a lot of times, the significant other doesn't like it because it's going to hold them accountable too. And it's not just, so a lot of times when my clients come to me with something that they don't like, I be like, hey, what did you do? So it ain't just like I'm not holding them accountable too. It's also understanding that two parties play a role in this. And then whenever they put the ball in their court to hold them accountable to certain things, they don't like it. Or they're so used to the man trying to keep the peace and not saying anything or expressing himself that when he does, give a little pushback, it's like, oh no, that therapist you going to, he empowering you too much. Like you coming back being too sassy, like you said, and you talking too much, and I don't like that. And what and essentially as clinicians, we understand that's emotional manipulation, and it's also emotional abuse.
What are some ways that you teach Black men? Like, what are 2 tips that you can provide to Black men to advocate for themselves in scenarios where they feel like they're being emotionally invalidated, when they feel like it's not a safe environment, whether it's with friends or with family or with work or even with relationships? What are 2 tips that you can give them, or 2 things that you can give them to say to advocate for themselves? Because I often make it a point to, I think even on social media, there's always like this gender wars thing. And I don't subscribe to that because I think that just really contributes to like oppressors just trying to make us more separate. But in terms of the aspect of supporting the community as a whole, I'll always state things that are good for the Black men are good for the Black women and non-binary Black people. Things that are good for Black women are good for Black men. Like, because we're a community, what are some things that you feel as though, like, tips that you give them to advocate for themselves? Because Black men need to advocate for themselves too.
I would say one of the things is I'd be like, for one, even if you're engaging if you're communicating with this individual, letting them know that, for one, let me take a pause. I don't want to respond I don't want to react to what you're saying to me. I want to respond to you. And I need to figure out how I'm actually feeling in this particular moment. And then also in those instances, maybe it may take 10 minutes, maybe it may take an hour, but let's make sure that we circle back to this and let me figure out how I actually feel and be able to use words that don't, degrade you, but then also it allows me to effectively communicate. And some people got to understand that using words from the actual aspect of being vocal is not the effective way that they communicate. Some people may need to write it out. Some people may need to, find a song or something that communicates the way they actually feel because they never really found the words to be able to do it. And so having that opportunity to create that space where it'd be like, okay, I'm receiving what you're saying. Let me take a beat for a second. It's not that I'm trying to dismiss what you're saying. I need to figure out the way I feel about this and us to be able to effectively communicate. Then for 2, also, even if it's not that individual that you can communicate with, you got to find somebody that you have the ability to openly express yourself and maybe be able to help you decipher what's really going on in your head. Again, we talked about before we started recording that, it was a text thread that I had with my cousins, and my cousin was like, man, I just want to go be a deadbeat dad one day. And like, even with that, I understood what he said. I understand what he meant, because like, I'd be like, damn, I feel that way too sometimes. Then my other cousin was like, not just a deadbeat dad, I want to be a deadbeat worker. I want to be a deadbeat husband. I want to be a deadbeat son. I want to be a deadbeat brother. All of that. Just let me get away from all of it. And so you need those spaces where you can fully express yourself and not feel like you're being judged. And I was just like, yo, hey, it's like, tell me about it. I feel you over that. So like having those spaces allow you to be able to sort through those certain things and then maybe go back to your significant other or go back to the individual that you are having these issues with, and you're being able to effectively communicate. I think a lot of issues is a lot of people don't know how to communicate, period. We're used to seeing people just yell. We go just try to overtalk each other, and then no matter what, whoever gets the last, word, that's it.
I think before we started recording, when Rwenshaun was like, "How's everything going?" I was like, "Yo, I'm about to go off for a pack of cigarettes, and then I come back when it comes to my kids." And just being able to have the space to acknowledge it, because I'm just like, "Yo, man, I'm not going to make it, and I don't think they care if they destroy me." One of my best friends was talking to me the other day. She said I could drop dead on the kitchen floor, and then my daughter would come over and ask me to make her a sandwich. She would hover over my dead body and say, "Can you make me a sandwich?" She said, "These kids don't care about me. They don't care about us."
They don't.
She said they would just ask, "Are you gonna? I mean, can I have a sandwich? Or are you just gonna lay there? Like, what?" This seems like a lot. But even just having the space to be able to share that, I appreciate that in the first place, because understanding whether you have that space, and I think it will also help listeners to understand that if you don't feel like you have that in anyone, that's a gap. You need that support system. But if you feel like you're in a relationship with someone, romantic, friendship, or otherwise, and anytime you guys have conflict, it leads to degrading you. There's no way to have a conversation. It's always loud talking. Just even understanding that that's an inappropriate way to communicate, and making a space to be like, I totally get how it's shown on media, and I totally get who is typically seen as individuals who engage in this behavior. But as someone who is also working on this in therapy, I have had patients that were men and women that were both being treated inappropriately by their partners. It's not just like a one size fits all thing. Just being there and sitting here and objectively stating, I mean, in my mind thinking, man, from what you shared with me, they sound like the problem, not you. Can't say that, but in my mind being like, she said, what? What did she, and having to be like, just have the patient dig out why they don't feel comfortable addressing that, why they feel like, well, I don't want to seem, just like you mentioned, I don't want to seem aggressive. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it's just like, you have feelings too. What about the fact that you're being degraded after you just disagreed with someone? And you deserve to have that as well. So I really want to appreciate that. You mentioned something about telling them to take a step back to see whether they're responding or reacting. How would you differentiate between when someone is about to react versus when they're about to respond?
So reaction for me is you're going to look at the situation only through your lens. And a lot of times the lens that you're looking at it is through your previous experiences. And a lot of times that's shielded by trauma. So if me and you, Doc, we're in a relationship together and you come to me asking me about, well, who's this chick in your phone? And the first thing I do is go off because of the fact of in previous relationships, I had somebody go through my phone and really asking me different questions about the person that was in my phone based off, and it could be a friend or something. I'm going to get very defensive. Responding to you, and the flip side would be like me asking you, I'd be like, okay, first of all, what person are you talking about? Let's talk about this in a calm manner. But then also asking you, be like, let's understand the totality of this entire picture when it comes down to, what do you think is going on? What are your thoughts being based upon and your questioning? Where's the lack of trust there and all those things? And then also me effectively communicating to you to let you know that what are we really addressing here? Are we addressing who's in my phone, or are we addressing, your lack of trust for me?
So it sounds like one of the biggest things between the two is you're slowing down. And you're treating the situation in more of a respectful manner. Like you're not just having a knee-jerk reaction. But you also mentioned, like, not only are you asking the other person in question different things, but you're also taking the time to think for yourself. Like, where is this coming from? So it's not only on the other person, it's also on you too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And be able to understand. It's reasonable, but it doesn't happen a lot because a lot of times we're operating in the fight or flight mode, period. We're always in survival mode. So you don't have time to respond to stuff. You're always reacting to try to protect yourself or protect your image or protect whatever else. And when you're reacting, you're going to do stuff. And whether you like it or not, 10 minutes later, you already done it.
Yeah, and I think it's tough because there's not a lot of space for us to slow down. And also, when you mention how your symptoms come up with bipolar disorder, one of the things you mentioned is hypersexualized behaviors, and that's actually people will talk about fight or flight, but a lot of people don't talk about the freeze response, which I find is more prevalent in men. And the freeze response includes like numbing behaviors, like increased substance use, anything that takes you out of the current time, increased sex and sexualized behaviors. And I think one of the reasons that Black men are being misdiagnosed is because people just don't make it a point to try to understand them. And there's this aspect of stereotyping them in this fearful manner. But I also think that they don't acknowledge the range of emotions in terms of symptoms being expressed differently. So if you see a Black man and he's not fighting or freezing, he must be okay. But they're constantly using every substance under the moon. They're constantly having sex with a bunch of different people to the point where they don't even understand the purpose, but it's just like, I can get it, so I'm gonna get it. And not seeing that's also a stress response. I think that contributes to a lot of Black men not getting the care that they deserve in the first place. People don't make it a point to understand them, and you can't assess what you don't understand or what you don't respect. Right? Like I couldn't provide an appropriate assessment to Black men if I don't respect Black men. I couldn't provide an appropriate assessment to children or women if I don't respect women or children. Like you have to also respect the population that you're trying to work with in order to provide them with the care they deserve.
And so even thinking about that from the lens of sex and sex being a mechanism for Black men to be able to self-medicate, a lot of times we don't think about it from that lens because of the fact that, we're considered, historically in this country, sex is used as something for Black men. Oh, this is, back even in slave times, it would be like, this is what this person is used for. This, we're used to breed and all of those things. And so those types of things continue to play an underlining role in our society. But then also, if I think about it from my personal lens, even as a kid, I was molested at 5 or 6 years old. And so I was molested by an older cousin. But then also with that, it made me view sex for one in two different ways. It made me view sex as I always have to be a pleaser, because, it coerced me into doing certain things to her. But then also with that, it made sex a transaction for me. And so sex wasn't about love. It wasn't about, how you actually felt about the person. It was about their physical response so with the pleasure part, being a pleaser, it was about your ego being able to please. But then also it was from the other end with the transaction, it was what you got out of it physically for, ejaculation. That's it. It wasn't about any emotions and feelings that was transpired with that. And then, so even in addition to that, as I move forward, even in life, my first real sexual experience, I was 11 years old, and it was with a 19-year-old. So, even again, that's still more like a transaction. And that stuff played a major role in the way that I saw women, the way I viewed relationships, the way I viewed friendships, all of those things up until I was in therapy, and that suppressed memory came back to me about being molested. So again, it goes back to me, the way I'm able to serve our community in totality, because it's not just men, but because also, these hurt men are out here hurting other individuals and vice versa, right? Because if I look back at it, my cousin was hurt at some point, which in turn hurted me, which in turn created me to hurt other people. So if I'm looking at my own healing and my own process of going through that, understanding that these are the conversations that we have to have, because if I'm using my penis as a way to self-medicate, me understanding like, why are you doing this? What about it do you see with you having sex with so many different people or doing whatever you're doing? What are you running from? And who made you think that it was okay to do that? We look at people that's chasing a crack pipe or any other particular drugs like, okay, that's an issue, but we don't look at it the same way for individuals that may be using their bodies in that particular manner.
Yeah, and I think part of that is also, a good significant aspect of that is due to what you mentioned, like the stereotypical thought process of Black men. Like you have the Mandingo stereotype and the fact that Black men were very much used as breeders, and then thinking that that's all that they're wanted for, that insatiable appetite, thinking that that's all they're good for. And in order to even ask yourself those questions, you would have to understand that those are stereotypes that you guys are more, right? And if you have so many messages out there that Black men are not more than what they can provide money wise or what they can provide sexually, you will be in scenarios where you're just like, oh, this is all this person wants from me. Or even you sharing, and thank you so much for sharing, but sharing the aspect of you being molested as a child, and stating that this is very much something that happens in our communities. And I've seen scenarios where people have shared that happening to them and legit have heard men be like, it wasn't that bad. And be like, what? If this was a young girl, somebody would have flipped a table. But because it's since it's a young man, since it was a boy, we're supposed to act like, oh, that's what they wanted. Like even in that aspect of sharing that, I just feel like there's just so much more work to do with individuals, like with your platform, being able to share it and destigmatize it, but just trying to make it a point that us as a whole just focus on the Black mental health piece and not feel the need to serve everyone, right? Like I feel like when I go to your platform, I know your population of interest. I know the people who are going to learn from you. I know who you're going to help. I think that it's difficult when we don't have more spaces like that to normalize it, right? Because you don't have to be Black in order to care for Black people. But because we're Black, we make it a priority to educate ourselves in that realm. And how many people are able to see themselves with you, I feel like significantly will help to combat stigma, even if it's not just you, with your organization. Like you out here doing speaking engagements too. You're doing a bunch of stuff to make sure that it's destigmatized in the first place. So one, I appreciate that. But I'll wrap up on this one. What are some common stigmatized messages about therapy that you've heard when it comes to Black men, and how do you address them yourselves with Black men?
Common stigmatized messages about therapy is, for one, that we try to get all in your business. Yes, I'm going to push you, but I'm not going to push you to the brink of, you not wanting to come back. I'm going to be real, like Denzel said in training day. He was like, yo, I'm real surgical with this bitch, Jake. Like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to pick apart the things that I need to pick apart. But like, I'm a love you and I'm gonna care for you, but then also I'm gonna help push you to be better. And, any of my clients, I know a lot of times we are taught in our programs and stuff, oh, you shouldn't cross certain boundaries and stuff when it comes down to therapy. I agree, certain boundaries, right? But then also we're communal people. So my people that come to me, they already know a lot about my backstory because they either found me on social media, I share about my stuff, and I'm going to be open with them as it is. But so then also with that, you know that I'm going to care for you in a manner of like, I really truly want to know what's going on and how I can help you, and it's not just about the dollar, and it's not just about getting you in and getting you out. So that's some of the things. And then some people, especially when it comes down to severe mental illness, we're scared about, oh, all they want to do is just dope you up and then, push pills on you and then move forward and that's it. Nah, that ain't all of us. Sometimes you need meds. Yes, for myself, I speak on, I need meds at certain times, and I trust my circle to tell me when they notice certain things going on with me that, hey, what's going on with you? Have you talked to your doctor about this? And me being able to receive that is something that, is important. But then also a lot of times we get caught up in, if you get a diagnosis, oh, that's going to go with you for the rest of your life. And, or I don't want my kids to be diagnosed because then it's going to be in their chart and then people going to judge them and this, that, and the third. All right, first of all, let me check you on that. Depending on what the diagnosis is, if it follows you or not. But then also, if they have a diagnosis and they need help, what's wrong with that? The other people are out there doing it all the time, and then they're getting these accommodations when it comes down to, oh, I need extra time on my test, or I need quiet spaces for my test and all of these other things. And then they're able to succeed. Why are we afraid to get these particular labels that are allow our kids to succeed? I didn't receive my diagnosis of having a reading disability until I was a junior in college. Once I got that, I was able to understand myself a lot better and figure out ways that I needed to study, figure out ways that I needed to take my test, figure out ways that I learned. Nobody is the same. So if, we have these particular labels, it's okay. It doesn't stop you from doing certain things. It may even enhance you to do certain things because you know yourself even better. So I think, we got to get out of that notion of, oh, I'm going to have this record and this, that. It's not a criminal record, y'all. It's not that you don't have a felony. It's not something that's going to keep you from, getting a certain job and all these things. This is to help you understand how your brain works, how your emotions work, how your body works, which is going to essentially make you a better person. And then I'll leave it at that because I can go on for days about this stuff.
Yeah, especially since some of us got records anyway, and we're fine. So, like, if you can deal with your criminal record, I just want to put that out there, guys. Like, I know some of y'all. All right, listen.
Hey, look, I know myself.
You can deal with your criminal record. You still working? You can go to therapy. Yeah, like all of us have been through some things, but if things have been expunged, there's no need to discuss them. So, like. What a time. But y'all, and we're going to leave it on that before Rwenshaun got me incriminating myself. My God. So, just get the help you need, guys. Get the help you need. Get the help you deserve. Thank you so much, Rwenshaun Miller. Tell the people where they can find you. And also, once again, just for those out there, this is Rwenshaun Miller, therapist, speaker, mental health change agent, and thirst trap expert. When you go to his page, just keep that bookmark button. Just be ready to click that button, guys, and enjoy your lives. Like, we don't judge.
Yo, shut up.
If stuff is out in the universe, it's because they want you to, it's because people want you to see it. It's because it's out there, y'all. It's out there, y'all.
I'm more than a therapist, man. I'm more than a therapist. That's all. I like to live life.
I know. I gave you all your titles. I'm trying to give you your props. What the heck? What do you not want? I mean, to do everything you do and then also stay in the gym. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to give you the props you deserve, Rwenshaun. What's the problem? What? I'm trying to give you what you deserve.
Oh man, I hear you.
Tell the people where they can find you, Rwenshaun. Tell the people where they can find you. You and your nonprofit organization, You Stress. Tell the people where they can find you.
Social media, man. If you can spell my name, you can find me. It's Rwenshaun. It's not pronounced the way it's spelled. It's pronounced Rwenshaun. People ask me all the time, what's up with all the extra letters? I don't know. You had to ask Myra Miller about that. I don't know. But yeah, on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn as well. But then also my nonprofit, Eustress Inc. is EUSTRESSINC. Those are on the social media platforms as well. We actually, coming up in May, we have our mental health awareness gala coming up, and we're doing our mental health awareness walk. And so if you know anybody I do the scholarship for Black men that are pursuing their degrees in the mental health field. Those nominations are still open until the end of March. So make sure y'all can check those out. And then, if you're in the Charlotte area, come check us out on May 18th.
That's what's up. And you accept donations too, right? For your organization?
Yeah. It's an official 501(c), so all donations are tax exempt and, all of those things. So feel free to donate too.
Yeah. If you're looking to, support organizations and you don't know how, give them money. Okay. This is a nonprofit organization that focuses on raising mental health awareness through conversations and activities that break stigma associated with mental illness in Black and Brown communities. You just heard him say he's doing a gala, which is probably going to raise more money and have a scholarship. If you want more individuals in this field, school is expensive. So if you're like, what should I do? Money.
And on top of that, not just a scholarship.
With a checkbook.
Yeah. And we also supplement therapy care for individuals that may not be able to afford it. So since COVID started, we started doing that initiative, and we have supplemented care for about 10,000 therapy sessions.
Come on. Y'all. I'm going to put the links to Rwenshaun's page as well as his organization in the show notes. So if you're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I forgot. Go to the link, the show notes, click it, and help out where you can help out. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. We're definitely going to have you back. I'm trying to make sure we have as many people discussing it who are dealing with issues as well as treating it. Because I think sometimes licensed professionals are not given the platforms they deserve. You got whole social media accounts dedicated to cats. And you're showing like legit helpful resources, and they just like, it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
what? We need to boost
Mm-hmm.
this. So thank you so much for coming, and we got to have you back. And thanks for listening, y'all. Don't forget, Mind Your Mental podcast. We're dropping episodes on Tuesday, as well as the Mind Your Mental community for a place for community. I mean, I said it so eloquently. And have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, Doc.